I was stuck ankle-deep in sticky pasture mud, hands wrapped around a busted fence post and a pair of rusty pliers, when the sudden wail of sirens shattered the morning calm. 3 squad cars barreled down my gravel driveway like it was a hostage. Crisis. I wiped sweat from my brow, blinking in disbelief. There she was, Karen. Neon pink windbreaker, arms flailing like she was directing air traffic. Standing right on my property line, broadcasting her version of the story to the 911 operator. "She's calling the cops on me," I muttered, half amused, half exasperated. Her voice rang out, sharp and accusing. "This man is trespassing. He's threatening me. He's got tools." I glanced at my hands. Tools? Yeah, that's right. Fence pliers. On my own land. I was fixing my fence, not causing trouble. The officers stepped out cautiously, hands near their holsters, eyes darting. Between Karen and me. "Sir, we received a call about a disturbance," one began. Before he could finish, I pulled my wallet from my back pocket, flipped it open, and flashed my badge. Sheriff's Department. Their faces went from suspicion to stone-cold surprise. Karen's mouth fell open, her bravado evaporating instantly. That's when I knew this was far from over. It was just getting interesting. 2 weeks prior, the farm had been peaceful. Just me, the rising sun, and the faint crow of a rooster. I'd just finished feeding the livestock. Steam drifted from the hay bales in the early light, and somewhere a hawk screamed from the pine trees. I was halfway through mending the fence at the northern edge when I noticed a figure standing just beyond the property line, arms crossed and scowling like I'd personally offended her. Karen. I'd heard the stories. She'd moved in from the city, bought a house with a wraparound porch, and apparently didn't know a thing about country living or property boundaries. "You know your cows are practically trespassing, right?" she snapped as if they were toxic waste. I smiled, trying to keep the peace. "That's the fence line. They're right where they're supposed to be." She didn't smile back. Just took mental notes in her internal Karen database, I figured. I told myself to ignore it. First impressions can be weird. But there was something in her eyes that said we weren't done yet. Next morning, I found a surprise taped to the tractor seat like a ransom note. "Cease all activity near our shared property line. This is your final warning." Bold, red marker. All caps, underlined twice. Signed by Karen. I laughed, peeled it off, and tossed it into the barn trash. An hour later, a deputy cruiser rolled up. "Neighbor called in a report about illegal livestock," the young deputy said, sheepishly. "You mean my cows?" I asked. He gave me that look, half embarrassed, half, "Yep, that's the one." Apparently, Karen had reported me for raising unregistered animals and storing chemicals. Total nonsense. But once the call is logged, someone's got to check it out. I showed the deputy the barn, the healthy animals, spotless feed bins. He left with a half smile and a wish for good luck. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, animal control showed up, clipboard in hand, serious. "As a judge, we received reports your animals might be underfed or showing signs of aggression," she said. Aggression? My cows? The only thing aggressive about them was when they knocked over the feed bucket. I let her inspect everything: water, feed, weight checks, even sniffed the hay, passed with flying colors. Still, paperwork delayed my livestock permit. Thanks to Karen's complaint, there she was the whole time, arms folded on her porch, sipping from a mug that read, "Bless this mess." That's when I realized this wasn't about cows or fences. It was about control. Karen had just fired her second shot. By week's end, I knew she'd gone full surveillance mode. I'd be out feeding, and I'd feel her eyes burning from behind those binoculars in her upstairs window. Watching. Waiting. The tape measure came out like a weapon. Karen stalked along the fence line, my fence line, clicking and snapping, scribbling notes like a lawyer prepping for trial. One afternoon, my 16-year-old son helped me swap out a broken board, hammer in hand. That was all it took. Karen called the sheriff, accusing him of brandishing a weapon, a hammer, on a farm. I had to talk down a weary deputy and explain we weren't reenacting some dusty Western showdown. We were just fixing the fence. But that wasn't the worst part. She started filming us every day, dawn till dusk. Phone in hand, pointed, straight at us. No warnings, no words. Just that smug smirk, like she was collecting evidence for a case she hadn't even invented yet. I tried to stay calm. I really did. But inside, a fire was building. Tight in my chest, burning at my jaw. She was baiting me, waiting for me to snap so she could say she won. I had to be smarter. That night, I sat on my porch well after sunset. Crickets chirped. The air smelled of cut grass and diesel. The only light came from the bug zapper flickering near the barn, cold beer in one hand, legal pad in the other. I wasn't going to lose sleep over Karen. I was going to build a case. See, what Karen didn't know, and what most neighbors didn't know, was that I'd spent nearly 20 years in law enforcement. I'd built cases that stood firm in federal court. I knew what evidence stuck, what got tossed, and how to stay calm when someone was dangling a trap. She wanted crazy. I'd give her cold, calculated documentation. I started logging everything: dates, times, photos. Installed trail cams, hidden and motion activated, capturing crystal clear footage. I recorded her yelling, her measuring, even the time she marched onto my property to scream at a cow. She thought she was playing chess. What she didn't realize? I'd already built the board, and I was 2 moves from checkmate. It happened on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. No wind, just the soft creak of the barn door and cicadas humming in the trees. I was reviewing trail cam footage over lunch when I saw her, Karen, clear as day, stepping through the fence into my pasture, wire cutters in hand. She walked straight to the boundary line, glanced around and snipped the bottom strand of barbed wire like she was trimming a hedge. Then she turned, looked dead into the lens, unaware she was being recorded, and said, "Now your cows won't bother me anymore." I paused the video, rewound it, watched it twice just to be sure. This wasn't mere trespassing. This was tampering with private property, with livestock fencing. That crossed into legal territory. The best part, she incriminated herself with her own words. I leaned back, heart pounding, not with anger, but from the poetic justice. Karen had handed me everything. No more, he said, she said. No more guessing. Proof, clear and undeniable. That night, I didn't sleep. I built a case file. Trail cam footage complete with timestamps and metadata. Cropped stills showing her stepping through the fence, holding cutters, making her little declaration, like the star of her own reality show. I gathered every note she'd left, kept them in a drawer just in case. Scanned, highlighted, labeled by date and location. Then voice memos, because I'd started recording every time she approached. There was one where she said, "If you don't move that fence, I will." Oh, Karen. By dawn, my digital folder held more evidence than a mid-season crime thriller. I drafted a formal complaint, civil trespassing, vandalism, harassment, filed it through the sheriff's internal system. What she still didn't know. This wasn't just a guy with cows. This was Deputy Coburn. Badge number, service record, full authority to file charges, push legal boundaries, and make her life very, very inconvenient. I wasn't going to raise my voice. I was going to raise the stakes. Next morning, I skipped the uniform. Didn't need it. Just clipped my badge to my belt, holstered up, and parked the cruiser right in front of the barn, where she could see it. Karen came storming across the field like clockwork, phone raised, already mid-rant. "You need to get that fence off my property. I've contacted the county. You're violating regulations." I raised a steady hand. "Ma'am," I said, calm and clear, "you are currently trespassing, and we have a formal complaint against you." She froze, mid-step, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "What are you talking about? You're just the farm guy." That's when I turned slightly, just enough for the badge to catch the light. Karen blinked like she'd just seen a ghost. I could see it all hitting her in real time. The cruiser, the badge, the calm I'd maintained through weeks of her nonsense. "You've been filming me," she snapped. "No, ma'am," I said. "You filmed you. I just saved the footage." She looked over her shoulder. The other deputies were walking up the drive. Not fast, not aggressive, just confident because they knew what was coming next. And Karen. She was about to find out. Karen backed up like she'd touched an electric fence. "This is harassment," she yelled, waving her phone in the air like a magic wand. "I'm calling the real sheriff." One of the deputies, my buddy Morales, stepped forward, cool as ice. "Ma'am, he is the sheriff's office. You've been calling him for weeks." Karen blinked, completely frozen. That's when I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and turned the screen toward her. There it was, full HD. Her stepping through my fence, her cutting the wire, her saying the words, "Now your cows won't bother me again." She lunged forward, trying to slap the phone out of my hand. Another deputy stepped between us. "That's enough," he said sharp. "Touch him again, and you'll be going in the car." Karen's face flushed, beet red. "You're trying to ruin me," she barked. I didn't say a word, just tapped once more on my phone. And hit send. The footage went straight to the county records and a backup cloud drive. And, just for good measure, I posted a short clip to my private TikTok. No names, just facts. By sundown, it had over 80,000 views. And Karen, she had no idea her 15 minutes of fame had just begun. By the next morning, I couldn't keep up with the notifications. My phone was buzzing off the table. Comments, shares, duets, even a few local. News reporters sliding into my DMs. The video had gone everywhere. Karen's face, frozen mid-sin, became an instant meme. People were stitching it with everything from Karen of the Corn jokes to dramatic reenactments of her snipping the fence with toy scissors. And then came the real blow. The local news picked it up. Not just online, televised. They ran the headline, "Woman calls 911 on off-duty deputy working his own land." They even interviewed a few neighbors. And let's just say Karen didn't have many allies. One guy said she called the fire department on my barbecue last month. Another said she reported a lemonade stand for not having a permit. It was like the whole street had been waiting for someone to take her down a peg. And now, finally, the dam had burst. Karen tried to deny it, of course, posted some shaky video claiming she was being targeted for being a woman with standards. But the internet doesn't forget, and it definitely doesn't forgive. The receipts were too strong, and her reputation shredded. Within 48 hours, Karen's life had turned into a PR disaster, and not the kind you can delete. Her HOO called an emergency meeting. Not a Zoom call, not an email, an actual in-person gathering at the community clubhouse. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I didn't need to be. Word travels fast in small towns, especially when half the attendees are sending you play-by-play texts. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd tormented. One neighbor said she'd demanded they rotate their Christmas lights to face away from her house. Another said she called the city on his 10-year-old for operating a rogue lemonade stand. Yeah, that one was real. They'd all stayed quiet until now. The HOA board hit her with a formal citation for harassment, violating community rules, and unauthorized property alterations, fines, warnings, mandatory mediation. She tried to fight it, of course, claimed she was the victim that she felt threatened by my livestock. But then someone played the fence-cutting video on a projector in the clubhouse. Big screen, full volume, dead. Silence. Karen left the meeting early, and when she got home, she found a brand new sign on my fence facing her yard. Smile. You're on camera. After that, everything changed, but not for me. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I could work my land without feeling eyes burning into my back. I rebuilt the section of fence she'd cut. Thicker posts, tighter wire, and a row of solar-powered motion lights just for good measure. Not because I needed them, but because I knew Karen hated them, the trail cameras stayed up. So did the warning signs. I even sent a full copy of my evidence file to the HOA, just in case she ever got twitchy again. But Karen, she disappeared. Not literally, she never packed up and left, but she vanished from the yard. No more binoculars pressed to the windows. No more measuring tape stalking the fence line. No more frantic 911 calls. She parked her car in the garage for the first time since she moved in. Every time I waved from the field, she'd dart inside like I was holding a flamethrower. The best part? I never had to raise my voice, never slammed a door or threatened a word. I let the facts do the talking, and her own actions did the rest. In the end, I got what I'd wanted all along: to run my farm, raise my kid, and live in peace. Karen wanted control. I kept my cool. That's how I won. Her world shrank fast. The story spread through the neighborhood, the next town over, even the county line. Realtors whispered about the viral video property. Curious folks drove by just to see the infamous fence. Others slowed, phones out, hoping to glimpse the legendary 911 Karen. Her house, once the pride of the cul-de-sac with its perfectly manicured bushes and live, laugh, love signs, became a punchline. She tried selling twice. Every open house was a circus. One couple asked, "Is this the place where someone called the cops on cows?" A teenager filmed a TikTok right where Karen had pulled her last HOA stunt. It hit over 1 million views. The HOA, now under fire from half the neighborhood, passed new rules on harassment, surveillance, and property interference. They never named Karen, but everyone knew. She started pulling the blinds, letting the yard go wild. The wind chimes stopped tinkling. The porch lights stayed dark. She hadn't just lost a fight. She'd lost her grip on the one thing she craved most: control. Me? I kept working the land, waving politely whenever she peeked through the curtains. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. Looking back, I never wanted a feud. I didn't want to be the guy who went viral for handling a neighbor with a superiority complex and a cell phone addiction. I just wanted to fix a fence, feed my cows, and catch a quiet sunset without someone calling the cops because I dared exist near their property line. Here's what I learned. Some people thrive on chaos. They feed on control, intimidation, drama, and if you meet them with the same energy, they win. So I didn't. I stayed calm. I documented. I let the truth speak. Because when you have facts on your side and the law in your corner, you don't need to shout. You just need to show up ready. Karen thought she could bend the rules, twist the story, paint me as the villain. But all she did was write her own downfall. One call, one snip of wire, one viral video at a time. And if she's watching this now, I hope she finds peace somewhere far away from livestock. Thanks for sticking with me through it all. Click the playlist if you want more stories like this.